welcome today to our kind of WTClass Basics course. I know that it seems about half and half of y'all are both faculty that are returning, that you've been around for a while, as well as several that have already taught before in some capacity. So some of this stuff for some of y'all that have already been here may kind of be review, but I'm going to start by launching a poll just so I can have an idea of kind of how many people are kind of falling into the different categories. How many of you are, people that have been here at WT for a while, faculty-wise? How many of you are new to teaching at WT, and also kind of newer to teaching? You've only taught like this summer, or maybe, just this spring and this summer, so you haven't necessarily had, how do you teach with WTClass type of information. How does WTClass work? Like I said, I think it came out to be, whenever I was looking through the people signing up, it was about half and half, but I just wanted to get a more accurate count as to what that might be. All right, it looks like everyone has polled, and I am actually pretty close to being right. I will share this with everyone so everyone can see that as well. So 44 have been here at WT, and 56, not 66, sorry, 56 have been teaching at WT for a while. So I just wanted to know that, kind of to know how much of this stuff may be review versus how much of this may be information you already know. So a lot of the stuff that I'm going to talk about, you may already know about in some form or capacity, and especially if you've never been kind of to any of our boot camp or WTClass trainings, you may not know some of these things. So it's always good to kind of review some of this stuff as to know why some things are there, why we do some things. But some of this may be kind of review for you, and I hope you don't get lost in that. All right, so let me continue on. Let me back up here, actually. So one thing that I do want to mention, so I am asking everyone to stay on mute as much as possible. That way we don't get a lot of feedback, a lot of extra background noise, things like that going on. If you have any questions, feel free to add it to the chat box. You should see it in the bottom of the screen. There should be an area. It may have to pop up if you move your mouse down to get to the chat area. Ask in the chat. I believe we have someone that is keeping an eye on chat that is here with us today. If not, I'm going to kind of keep an eye on it as well, and that if we have questions, I will take a look at it periodically and see if I can answer those as well. And then at the end, I'll open it up for some more question time, and then you can always ask, talk it through then as well if you need to. So, okay, so getting started, so WTClass is what we call our version of Blackboard Learn. This way, if we ever change our system, we still have the same title, we can still use the same kind of branding and stuff like that. So it is called Blackboard Learn, that is the LMS that we use. So if you're ever trying to get any resources, test pools, test banks, stuff like that, you're looking for the Blackboard version of it. That's the one that will be the most compatible with what we have. So this starts with this is the home page. This is the My WTClass tab. It is the first tab that you come to whenever you come into WTClass. Hopefully, most everyone has been able to already get into WTClass. I know that there are some people that are still working on getting their account set up. And typically what we recommend is contacting the department first to make sure that they've filled out all the paperwork, because basically you have to have some HR paperwork done, you have to be listed as the instructor of record, and then they also have to put in an IT request form to get you access. We also get a lot of faculty that say, oh, well, I can get into my email, why can't I get into WTClass? Well, that probably means that you haven't been set as instructor of record yet. And that, again, goes back to that department to try to get them to make sure that all of your pieces are set up with the proper authority and what they're needing. But if you ever have problems getting in, let us know, and we can help try to track down where the problem might be as well. All right, so inside of WTClass, you can see up in the top right-hand corner when you're inside of WTClass, there are several tabs up in that corner. The My WTClass tab, like I mentioned, that's the first page you come to. Community groups, if you have any community groups that you are in, you would see those. Those can be student organizations, those can be comprehensive exams, We have lab safeties in there. We have a bunch of different community group things that may be available to you, just depending upon what you're involved in as to whether or not you have anything on that area. The content collection is only available to faculty. If you don't see the content collection tab, please let us know. That means that your account is probably not set up fully for faculty rights, and there'll be a couple of other areas I'll talk about that you won't have access to if you don't see this tab. Basically, this is an area that you can actually add files into, and it is just files. It's not tests or assignments. It's just files you can add to that you can actually link to multiple courses. So instead of having to update things in like 3 classes, you could actually put it in content collection, link to that file, and update it one time in the content collection, and it would update all 3 of the courses, or however many courses it might be linked to. Resources and student services are both just some areas, if you need help, if your students need help, some ways that people can get different things. All of those are found under there. Lastly is the help tab. This is where you and your students can get help. I also like to point out that next to your name, you may see a whole bunch of red numbers. This is basically indicating new things going on in the classes that you're teaching. This could be new messages, new things that you need to grade, new content, a lot of different things that can appear there. A lot of people just ignore these because they can become overwhelming, and some people customize them so that they actually see what they need to see in this box. And then in the top right hand corner is also that little circle with a line. That's the log out button. It takes you back to MyBuff portal whenever you're done with WTClass. So going back, talking about that help tab, again, this is a place that you as well as your students can get access to help with WTClass, specifically WTClass help. On the top left is the students module. This is where students can go to get help. It's also, if you ever have a student, if you ever have students that are confused and aren't sure how to do something, they may need to get some resources. You could also pull up the page that they need from here and send them the direct URL. It goes out to our students.wtamu.edu website. And so that gives them help for how to do a lot of things. So you don't necessarily have to explain how to do some things. You can use our resources for how to do things. And then right below that is the WTClass instructor help page. This is where you can get help. If you do not see this module that goes along with that content collection, if you do not see this module, then that means that your account is not set up correctly, and we need to know that so that we can get your account set up to make sure that you have the full rights as a faculty member. Oh, let me see. We do have a question here. All right, so if you don't have that WTClass instructor help module, please let us know so we can get that set up. And then on the right side, there are 3 different ways that you can get help. This is really more specifically for your students for how they can get help. If you need help, you're more than welcome to contact an instructional designer specifically to ask for help, but you can also go through these ways, especially if you're asking for help on nights or weekends. Sometimes we're a little bit more busy and aren't quite as responsive on those times. Where we do have somebody that's more dedicated to that night and weekend, we kind of divvy it out. So you do have somebody that can help you on that, and by contacting it through the help desk can help get those questions answered usually a little bit faster than you might if you send it directly to one of us. But those are kind of the main things of help. I always like to point that out so that people know, where do I go if I ever need help? Who do I contact? This is one of those areas that you can go to find out how to help. All right. Nope, come on, let's go. So that help area will lead you to the faculty help website. This is at faculty.wtamu.edu, and then specifically if you want to get to the WTClass, you can go /WTClass, and that will take you straight to the WTClass help. This is going to give you, that self-help if you need help with how do I set up an assignment, how do I set up a test, how do I publish grades, how do I do all those different things. All of that can be found on this page. if you want to look for self-help. Sometimes we have videos, sometimes we have PDFs, sometimes we have both. It just kind of depends on what you're interested in doing. All right, so back on that My WT Class tab, there is a My Courses module. This is where you go to be able to enter all of your class. Also, there's some other important things that I like to point out that are on this. On the top left corner is the scheduled network downtime. This is an outdated image, so don't take this word for, strictly to heart. But this module will show you the current downtimes for the upcoming semester. Right now we just have through summer, so we just have the one listed for July, but we'll get in the falls up here soon, so that you know ahead of time when the system is going to be down. The nice thing about this is also for students, so students can see when the system will be down, so that you and your students in theory will know ahead of those Friday downtimes when the system will be unavailable, so that you can try to plan accordingly to see how exactly or when exactly you may not be able to get into the system to do things. Also, the My Announcements area, this will list both institution announcements as well as announcements that have been posted in the classes for you and your students to be able to see. All right, let's see. Okay, so one of the things that I always recommend whenever you first start at WT is making sure you get your courses set up by terms. A lot of faculty that have been here for many years, if they never have come to one of these WT Class Basics courses, miss this, and over time you end up with this really long list of courses where with one semester it's just your 3 or 4 or 5 classes, but after 5 semesters now that's duplicated 5 times, and so you may eventually get to like 50, 60 courses if you've been here a while, and it can start to become difficult to locate your courses, which course you need for that particular semester. So in that My Courses module on the home page, if you click on the little flower, the little cog or wheel icon that appears in the top right hand corner, it will open up the settings page, and the very first option is group by term. If you check that checkbox, it will change it from what you can see now on the screen where it has all of these lists of courses to, oops, I guess I don't have that, to where it will actually group each thing by each semester. So the fall semester will be all together. Your spring semester will be all together. And it makes it really easy to be able to view things much more conveniently and in line, so you know exactly what semester you have. Let me switch over here to my screen. So you can see here's my Courses module, and I have all of these different terms that I can actually expand out and collapse very nicely and easily, so that I can easily tell what am I working on this semester instead of them all being intermixed between each other. All right, so my next question that I have here, let's launch this poll as well. So how much online experience do you have? For those of you that have taught for WT, as well as those that have taught elsewhere, how much experience do you have working with online classes? Have you taught a fully online class before? Have you just used the online to add a few things? Have you only added your syllabus? Do you have no idea about anything online related because you've never done anything related to an online course before? That is absolutely a real possibility. Especially if you're brand new instructor and never taught before, you could be in that online what? So I just want to kind of get an idea of kind of where we are related to how many people have taught in different kind of formats. All right, we're almost got everybody. I'm going to give everyone just another second or two. All right, so let me share this back so everybody can see. So it looks like the majority of us have taught online, but at the same time, if you look at everyone who has not taught online, the rest, that's 30, 40, 65. So really the majority of us have not taught a fully online course. It looks like the majority of us have at least done something with online components, materials, assessments, or fully online course. So we got a lot of people that have done a lot of things online. So we have an idea. We probably got a few people that know a lot of got a good feeling for how WTClass works. All right, so let me continue on here. So the next area is kind of the course homepage. And so the course homepage is the first page that you come to whenever you come into an actual course. So this isn't the My WTClass tab, but this is once you actually enter into the course homepage. So there's some things that are here that are by default. None of the stuff that is on this page is necessarily something that you have to keep in this order, this format, or anything like that. This is just our default template that we assign to all classes. Some of the important things that are on here that I like to point out, on the modules over here on the right, all of these components that are on this page are called modules. This can be kind of confusing because there's a couple of different areas that call things modules in different formats, but this is called a module. So we have a My Announcements module. This shows you just the announcements for just this course. We have the Syllabus module. This is where you can post your syllabus as well as students can see the syllabus you've posted, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit. We have the early alerts and publishing grades. I'll talk about that also here in a little bit. On the right, we have the Smart Thinking tutoring. This is where students can actually go to get online tutoring, whether they're in an online or a face-to-face class. It is online tutoring. We do have on-campus tutoring as well for face-to-face classes and different things as well. And then we have access for students to be able to access the course evaluations all from this homepage. On the left, we have the course menu up at the top, and then at the bottom we have course management and the control panel. This control panel is instructor only area, and I'll talk about this a little bit more as we go throughout, but this control panel is only accessible by you as the instructor. Students do not see this. So in that course menu, there's several things I like to point out. You can reorder anything that you want by moving your mouse over it, and you get that up-down arrow that's to the left of it that you can drag and drop that into the order that you want it to be. If you see any of those squares to the right that are just a square, that means there's nothing in that, and therefore students don't see that. So the lessons area and the resources area, by default, students don't see those to begin with. You notice also on the very last item in there, instructor alerts, it's got that gray square with a line through it. That means that this is hidden from students, that it is purposefully turned off so that students don't have access to it. And so by the very name, instructor alerts, it has information on this page that only instructors need access to. And if they actually get access to this page, unless you edit the page, they don't actually see anything on it right now. But I just like to point this out. You can alter this, you can add things to it, you can delete things, you can move things around. You can create your own course menu here if you're ever interested. I want to give a little plug right now with all of this. We do have a course template that we recommend for a lot of student-based resources and navigation. That is the session that runs tomorrow. If you're interested in it, we highly recommend you coming. I know a lot of people are already signed up for it. If not, feel free to let us know, and we can make sure you get that invitation as well to get access to that extended course template that we go over kind of why is everything in there in that manner. All right, so continuing on. So one of the things that I like to mention is the edit mode. If you ever come into a class and go, I can't do something, I can't access my content to make edits, I can't add things in, I can't do something, double check and make sure that your edit mode is off. There are several reasons why your edit mode may be off. It may be simply we did a system update and it turned people's edit modes off for some unknown reason. It may be that you got added to a course as a student and therefore it turned your edit mode off in all of your classes. That's a known issue. We're hoping that they get that fixed, but right now it's something that just happens. So if you ever go into a class and you can't do something, you're missing your toolbars or something like that, make sure that edit mode is turned on, because that may be the one thing that's preventing you from access. This is what I like to call the semi-student preview, and why I say it's a semi-student preview is because it doesn't turn everything off. The control panel, like I mentioned before, is still available to you when you have edit mode off, even though that's not in student in a student view. But other than that, the way the content displayed, that's going to show you a lot closer view to how students see that particular content. There is a true student preview, and I'll talk about that later on, that you can actually see exactly what students see also. All right. So since about half of us have been here at WT, a lot of us know how to do your syllabus, but I'm going to run over this just for those people who have never taught with WT. You have an idea of how do you actually work your syllabus, add your syllabus in. So uploading your syllabus. On that course homepage, you notice that there was that syllabus area that said course syllabus and manage syllabus. Course syllabus is where your students, as well as you, can go to view what has been uploaded. Manage syllabus is only available to you if you're the instructor in the course. So if you don't see manage syllabus, A, double check and make sure your edit mode is turned on, and B, make sure you're actually the instructor for the course. So to get to upload your syllabus, you click on that manage syllabus. It will open up a new tab, a new window, where you will see a list of all of your current courses. If you don't see any course here, there's a couple of different reasons why. It may be it's too soon. Whenever courses are released for the new semester, it usually takes us a couple of weeks before we get that syllabus website updated to include all of your upcoming courses. So that may be kind of going on in the background. So give us some time. Now, for right now, you should see your fall classes in there. If you don't see them, again, you have to be the instructor of record, not just in the course as an instructor, but you have to be the instructor of record with colleague, with Buff Advisor, to see it in this area. So once you see your course, you would click on the Add Syllabus button to the right of the title, and then, oh, there we go. And it will take you to a page to be able to allow you to upload. You click the Browse button, you locate the file that you have, and you click Upload. Just know there is a 5 megabyte size restriction. You really won't have a problem unless you have a lot of images in there. But a normal file should not have problem with staying under that file size. You have several different types. You can upload Word, PDF, HTML, a lot of different file formats to be able to upload in there. And again, once you get that file attached, you click Upload. That will change the look. So instead of saying Add Syllabus, it will say View, Replace, Delete. View allows you to open it. Did I make sure and submit the right one? Replace it allows you to go, oops, I just opened it and it's the wrong one. Let me clear that out. Replace will take you back to that upload page so that you can go back through and upload again. And delete goes, nope, that's entirely wrong. Let me start all over. Most people that use the delete, it's because somebody switched sections. They got sections switched, and the former professors already uploaded their syllabus, but they haven't had a chance to make a new one yet. So they want to delete it out so that students don't see the wrong syllabus for the wrong professor, and then get their time to upload it, make their changes, and then upload it in there. Also, once you're in there, you can actually reuse an existing syllabi for a semester. So once you upload one, you can actually, if you're teaching the same sections, or maybe you're teaching the same course, just different sections, when you go in to upload, there's also a drop-down menu that you can click on an existing syllabi for one of the classes you've already uploaded, and it will then change it to say that it is using a similar course. So you can see over here on my bottom right side of the screen that it says for English 1301, it has the View Replace, but it also says the syllabus is also used for Section 2. And then on Section 2, it says it's using the Section 1 syllabus, and it also gives the ability to unlink it so that it's no longer in there. And then, of course, delete under Section 1 would delete it from both Section 1 and 2. So if you have the ability to essentially manipulate your syllabus to be a little more generic for Section 1, 2, and 3, you could use the same one for all 3 sections. That is up to your department as well, because some departments do have rules and regulations that require every course has its own individual separate syllabus, while some have a little bit more leeway that you can essentially combine it because it's all the same material. There's just maybe some different components for each, or different time meetings for each. All right, so I mentioned upload, unlock, and link. So one other thing that I always like to remind people, please go back and verify that you uploaded the right syllabus for the right course. You can do that by clicking on that view link or by going back to the course homepage, clicking on course syllabus, and just verifying, did you really get the right one in the right course? It's real easy to select the wrong one or rename it the wrong one or something like that. So just make sure that you have the right syllabus uploaded for the right course. All right, so also on the course homepage is that early alerts and publishing grades page. Now, I'm not going to talk about how to publish grades because publishing grades doesn't come for another several months, and I don't want to overwhelm you with information today, and I want to make sure that whenever it comes time to publishing grades, you get the information you need then. We do send out emails before grades are due with how to do it. It includes videos, it includes step-by-step instructions. How do you upload, how do you submit your grades? So I'm just going to talk about early alerts right now. So what early alerts are, it's in that module. Again, you just click on that early alert button. You will only see early alerts after the term starts. So if you clicked on an early alert right now, you would only see courses for summer 2. You would not see courses for fall yet because the semester hasn't started. But an early alert is basically a notification for, hey, maybe you're missing class, you're not doing well. Let's see if we can get you some help to see if there's something going on that you might need a little extra help with. And so what this does is it actually goes to advising services for them to take a look at contacting the student, reaching out to them to see maybe what's going on, maybe something that they might be uncomfortable talking to their professor about, but they might be more comfortable talking to someone else. Do they need to go to medical services? Do they need to go to counseling services? Do they need to withdraw because they're just falling behind because they're not getting things taken care of? Those types of things that academic advising can talk to them to see what's kind of going on to help them along with that. So to submit an early alert, you click on that button that says submit an early alert. Again, it's going to take you to a page. It's going to list all of your current semester courses. You click on a course and it's going to list all the students in the class. Then you can click on the name of the student you want to submit an early alert for. It's going to pre-populate some of the information such as the student's name and ID number, the course, what your name is, all of that kind of information. And then basically it gives you a spot where you can add in what's going on. Are they not attending? Are they not completing assignments? Are they falling behind? What information does advising services potentially need to know what's going on? As well as, you know, what does the student need to do to help at this point? Please know whatever you put in here, advising services may read that information back to them. So please be nice in the way you word things and don't say things like they're stupid, because that's not going to look good on you. So make sure you're very clear as to what's going on. How do they need help, to help advising services to be able to see if they can help that student. Advising services is not the police. They are not going to go to someone's room and drag them to your class kicking and screaming, or drag them to the computer to get them on the Zoom meeting, or however your meeting is, however your class is going to be meeting. So they can't force anything, but they'll let you know if they're able to contact the student and what the student says. That doesn't mean the student's going to follow through. Sometimes students may say, I'm going to contact the professor to talk to them about my problem, and then they never do. There's nothing you can do about that. That's nothing that advising services isn't lying to you or anything like that. Just sometimes students don't follow through with what they're planning on doing. So just be aware of that. But this is one method of retention to try to get students to continue doing well, or to pick up if they've been slacking, to remind them, hey, you're not doing so well, let's get you back on track. So that's one of these ways. You can do this for both face-to-face as well as online classes if they're not attending Zoom sessions, if they're not coming in and completing assignments. You can do that for any type of course to help get them moving along here. All right, so the calendar. Inside of the calendar, you have, inside the course menu, you have a calendar item that you can actually add assignments to. I'm actually going to switch over here to an actual course here for the calendar to get a little bit better perspective of what's going on here, because my screenshots I don't feel always do good justice of everything. So in the calendar, you have the ability to add in things to the calendar. You can click a specific day, you can click the plus sign, however you want to do that, and you can type in information. So we have something in here. You can set up the time for when it is. You can have it set to repeat. You can give it the description. You have all sorts of information that can go here. And what it will actually do is, hopefully you can see this, is it will actually put anything for each class in its own separate color. You can see on my left side, I have a whole bunch of different courses with a whole bunch of different colors showing up here. And each course is designated with a specific color. And so you can see here, there's some of these institution ones that are set for everyone, that you can also turn on and turn off individual calendars. Most people don't have as many calendars and things as I do, so it's really not as difficult as it looks whenever you're looking at mine. But this allows students to be able to keep track of everything across all of their courses in one area. So students have the ability to add their own items, and you have the ability to add your own items for your course. So you could set up due dates in here. One thing I also like to mention, if you set up an assignment or a test, or there's a due date function within the system, if you set up due dates, it will also trigger those into here as well. So you don't necessarily have to set up everything, but it gives you the ability to set it up in here as well, just by clicking on that plus sign or clicking on the individual day. If you see something and you're like, nope, that's wrong, you can also click on it and select the option to delete it if you don't need it anymore and you realize you did the wrong thing or something like that. Just be aware, because it does show everything from every course a student is in, as well as the institution ones. Be leery of putting every possible thing on here, that, you know, when your office hours are and when you're going to be in other classes, or, you know, you put too much stuff on here and students won't look at it. So you have to be careful with how much you put on it. But if there's going to be things like, you know, you're going to be out of town because of some conference or something, probably not as much of a thing that will be happening this year as in other semesters. But if you have something that, you know, maybe you're going to be out for an extended period of time and you want to make sure your students are kind of aware that for this amount of time, I may be delayed in responding, you could put that on there. Again, your due dates and things like that would be good to be able to put on here. If you have Zoom meetings that aren't necessarily every day, every class meeting or every week, you could put those on here to, you know, if they're a monthly Zoom session or something. And so you have that ability to add in your dates on here. All right. Let me see. Okay, so another question here. So the next section that we are going to talk about is kind of some of our communication tools. And so the main ones we're looking at are course messages and email. And this is for a lot more the people that have already taught online or taught at WT. If you haven't ever taught at WT, you may not have a clue about any of these. But I just want to have an idea of kind of how many people are using course messages, how many people are using email, how many people are using both. And then if you've never used either because you are a brand new person, you are more than welcome to do that. I have no idea what these are because you don't necessarily know what the difference is between the two. I'll give everyone just a minute because I'm just trying to see kind of where everyone stands so far. All right, so most everyone has polled. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and end this. I'll share this back so everyone can have an idea of where everyone sits. The important thing that I want to point out, if you notice, we are half and half on course messages, send email, and if you combine those two, we end up with half and half with those that use both. So everything is pretty close to about even. And I'll kind of explain why I like showing, why I like mentioning that, and why this was a perfect example of that, and why I love that. So, like I said, I'm going to talk about kind of some of our communication tools. So the first one I want to talk about is course messages. So in course messages, so we have the two. We have course messages and send email. They both function very differently, and I like to make it very clear about this, especially for new people, that you understand what the difference is. So course messages is an internal messaging system. By default, you actually have an inbox and a sent box inside of WTClass. So you can send your own email. You go in, you click the create message, you click the two. Let me actually switch over here and let me actually send one so that we can actually see all this. So when we get into course messages, again, there's our inbox and our sent box. We can click compose message. We click the to button, and it's going to list all of the students, professors, everyone that is in this course over on the left. Since this is a dummy course, it doesn't have a lot of people, but typically you would see all of your students. Since students are already populated in like your fall courses, if you go into fall courses, you will see all of your students in there right now. So what you do is you click on who you want to send this to. So I'm going to just send this to myself. Just so we can see what the response is as well. So if we click on ourselves, we can move this over, and whoever is on the right is then who all this is going to be sent to. I like to point out there is a select all button, so you can select everyone, move everyone over, and send this to everyone in the class all at one time. You can do CC, you can do BCC as well. You have all of those options as well. We get to our subject line. You enter your subject. You enter your body of your message. If you only have one row of your toolbar, if you need more, there is a double down arrow that appears in the top right hand corner that you can expand that out so you can actually see more. More of that toolbar. It's got some other kind of functionality and features. You can add attachments and images and stuff like that. So you do have some other things that are available to you by doing it that way. You can click browse and upload a file as well. Do know with course messages, you can only attach one file. So know if you're doing course messages, you either have to zip everything together or send multiple emails if you have multiple files that you want to send. I also like to mention with messaging files, please know we really don't recommend you sending files through course messages. We would rather you upload it into lessons, because what actually happens is it will then send a copy of that file to every student. So if you send a file that's 5 megabytes to 10 students, it's now taking up 50 megabytes on our server, because every student, every one of those 10 students now got a copy of that 5 megabyte file in their message folder. And so now there are 10 copies of that file. So you can see where if you're now doing that once every week, you do that for 10 weeks, now you went from, 10 students with 5 megs for, 50 megs for 1 week to now 500 megs across the course. And now if every faculty member does that, our space gets run up real fast. So if it's something that you're trying to send to all people, we recommend you adding it into like lessons, sending them a message that says, hey, I've added a new file, a new article to the lessons area. Please go take a look. It's something that, can help save us some space as well. But you can do that. Once you click submit, it sends that message. You'll notice that now in my inbox, I have 1 unread, 1 total. In my sent box, because I sent it to myself, I also have 1 sent message as well. Let me switch back over here so I can make sure I'm telling everything that I need to tell. Okay. All right. So to view that message, of course, you can come into the inbox. Then you can see who it was sent to. This status icon lets us know whether it's read or unread. Closed envelope means unread. Open envelope means read. It tells us what the message is and when we received it. You can click on the link to open up that message. One other thing I like to point out, on the My WTClass tab, if my course will load, there's this My Messages module. You'll notice that it will also tell me anything that I have a new unread message for. I can also click on that link and it'll take me right into my inbox. So instead of having to come into the course, click on course messages, click on inbox, it helps to get me to that a little bit faster. So I can click on my subject. I can see all the information, who's it from, who's it to, when it was sent, subject, message, all that information. I can reply to everyone. I can reply just to the sender. I could forward this to someone else in this course only. I could delete this message also. If I need to send it to somebody like in another class, if I need to send this to another professor, I have the option to print this out that I could then print to PDF so that then I could send it to someone else. There's not a way to send course messages between courses. If I click the OK button is always basically the go back to where I last was. So if I click the OK button, it's going to take me back to my inbox, and I can now see that my status is now showing that open envelope because now it has been read. All right, let me go back to my PowerPoint, make sure I got everything that I'm talking about. All right, so let me switch back over here. So like I mentioned, it does have an inbox and a sent box. Some people then say, well, how do I know that I have one other than coming into the course? So that's why you do get a message notification in your email letting you know you have a new course message. Now, basically all it does is say, hey, you have a new message, and here's the person it's from, and here's what course it is. And so that's all the information it's going to give you. You have to go back into WTClass to be able to view that and respond to that. So course messages is all contained within WTClass. You have to send, you receive, everything is inside of WTClass. You can only get a notification that you have a new course message. So now on the other side of things is your send email. So let me switch back over here and go to my send email. All right, so in send email, you have a whole lot of different options for how you send this email. Send email is an external email tool. The only thing that is inside of WTClass now is the initial send. Once you hit send, it is no longer in WTClass. So you notice you can send it to everyone in the class, everyone that's a student in the class, teachers, instructors. You can also single out specific people. So I'm actually going to do this. Excuse me. So similar to what we've seen before, we would click on the name of the person. We would move our message over. Again, this is who all it's going to be sent to. Notice it does list our email address in here as who it's being sent from. So if you come in here and you see your email and you go, that's not the right email, let us know, because there might be some different reasons why that might not be the right email. And then our subject line, you can add in your subject line. And just like before, your message. You also have the option for a read receipt, a return receipt. Do you know this is, this basically will let you know if a student has read a message or not. Just know that because this is determined by a user's email account or their system, that just because you didn't get a return receipt does not mean that they didn't read it. It means that if you got a return receipt, they did read it. But they can always turn it off to say, no, don't accept return receipts, don't send that back. So just be aware of that. You also can attach files. You can attach multiple files to emails. It doesn't have the same issue with creating multiple copies as the messages do, but just be aware, you still have that file size limitation that you have to watch out for as well. Once you get it all done, you click the submit button. It will send that email out to whoever you've sent it to. You can see up here at the top, it's letting me know exactly who this was sent to. Now, if you notice, there's no inbox, no sent box. So where is all of that? So again, all of that is contained in your email account. So let me see here. So there's no record of it kept inside of WTClass. You do receive a copy of anything that you send to your inbox, to your @WTAMU email. Students also the same thing. They get a copy to their @Buffs email. So keep a copy of anything that you send. That way, if you need to be able to look back at what you sent to people, you have that copy of it. Sometimes it automatically ends up in people's sent mail. Sometimes it doesn't. It just depends on the person. And unfortunately, I have no idea why some automatically end up in sent and some don't. I also mentioned, please don't send email without a subject line. Sometimes if you don't add a subject line, there's been a known issue long ago that it hasn't happened that I'm aware of in a long time, that the message can actually just not be sent. To your looks, it looks like it's sent, but it just never goes through. So just be aware of that. It's always good etiquette to add in that information anyways, to add in a subject line. But just know that there has been a known issue at one point in time where it would actually just, delete the message, basically, that email, when you do that. So here's an example of how that email looks for whenever you send or whenever you receive an email. It lists the student, or it lists the person who sent it in their name. It tells you what course as well as the subject line, all in that subject. And then the message is actually in your email, so you don't have to come back into WTClass to see it. So again, that means it's actually all in that Outlook email, all in that WT email. So a lot of people will ask us, both faculty and students, can I change that email that it pushes out to? I don't want it to be my WT email. Unfortunately, we cannot change that. And it's for several reasons. Number one, this is coming from university communications. It really needs to use the university, official university emails. But also there are issues with some external email accounts such as Yahoo and Google, Gmail, stuff like that, that they will actually block emails because this is seen as a third-party email. That Blackboard is sending it for you, and they think it's spam then, so they delete them or they put them in the junk mail. Where if you send it if you are always using your WT email, we have the way to fix or to look at student email accounts to try to make sure that they don't end up in that spam. Usually if they're ending up in spam, it's because they're doing something. The student has selected an option to make that go to it. Or there's some other things that we can recommend that they fix on their email account to make sure that that doesn't go to their spam or junk email folders. But we can't do that with Gmail and Yahoo and those other email accounts. So we have to make sure that they're using an email address that we can make sure that they'll always get. We'd hate for you to be sending out these emails and a student then has a complaint saying that you never emailed them. And it's all because they were using an unsupported email, essentially. So if you do have students that are saying, you're not getting my emails, make sure that your students are checking their student email, their buff email. They may be looking in course messages within the course, or they may be checking their Yahoo email. Make sure that they're checking the WT emails for that information. So just as a little bit of a wrap up. So with messages, all messages are contained within the course. That's the inbox and the sent box. You do get a notification email sent, but it does not contain the message itself. You have to return to WTClass to be able to view it and respond to it. Where with email, WTClass is simply a push of that email out to everybody's external email, everybody's WT email. There is no record of it kept in WTClass, but you do receive a copy of everything that you send. So why is that kind of important? So what happens if you have both send email and course messages available? 40-something% of the people here today said that they use both. Now that may be because in one class they use one and in another class they use another, but my guess is that you have both of them available. How many times have you had students say, I've emailed you 50 times, why haven't you responded to me? Well, they're using email, but they're looking in course messages. You'd be amazed at how many people at the beginning of every semester, especially the fall semester, that we get students saying, my instructor hates me because they won't respond to any of my emails. Well, when we get them to look at their student email account, they kind of go, oopsie, my professor has been emailing me back. And now they feel really bad because they've been muddying your name everywhere, when really it's because they weren't checking the right thing. So it's important to know the difference between those two for both you and your students. So if you had gone through this process, how many emails would you have gotten? So the message notification. So this is when I sent the course message to myself, I should have received an email. Now, because I went and immediately viewed it pretty quickly after, I might not get that because basically Blackboard says, well, you've already seen it. Why do I need to notify you that you have a new message? So you might not get that one. There's also a potential of a 30-minute delay between the time that you receive it and you receive that email notification. It runs on a script every 30 minutes. Any new messages, it sends out an email to all of those people. So it may be that it just you haven't received it yet, type of thing. So then with a sent email, so I sent an email to myself. Well, I may not have received the sent email because I sent it to myself. And so sometimes Blackboard is smart enough to say, you don't need 2 copies of the exact same thing. So I'm just going to send the email where you received the email. So you may have only, I may have only received 1 email, but I have a potential for getting up to 3. I think because I have another device up that I've been kind of watching, I got the message notification as well as my received email. So I received 2 of them. So I know I got 2 of those. I didn't get the one where I sent it to myself because it recognized I sent it to just myself. There's no reason to send you 2 of them. So with that, one of the things that we often recommend is that you actually turn one of the options off for send email or course messages. That way it forces your students to use one method or the other. That way they know exactly how to communicate with you, as well as that they're not being confused between the differences. Again, you'd be amazed at how many people are using send email and looking for the response in course messages. You can easily turn that off by clicking on that drop down menu next to whichever one you don't want to use. So in the case of my image here, if you don't want to use send email, you click the drop down, click hide link. It'll add that little square with a line through it that, if you remember from the start, is the indication students don't see that, and it'll make that unavailable to them. You still have access to it, so if you need to go in and send in a different way, or you need to switch it to the other one mid-semester for some reason, you still have that option. Now, why is that important? Why do we recommend this? Or why don't we have one as a preferred way is really what's going on. As you saw with that poll, we came split pretty well right down the middle for which one people prefer. They're either, we had the exact number for course messages and send email. If you put both of those together, we had the same number then for who uses both. There's not a clear winner in anything. And so we have both of them available so that you have the ability to choose what method do you want. I prefer course messages. I don't like those emails coming from my students in my email. I get way too many emails and I'm going to lose it. But course messages, I get the notification, so it reminds me, okay, I need to go email them. I need to go check it and message them. And so when I have time, I go in there and I take care of my messages at once. Where if I put it in my email, if I forget, I'll say, okay, I know I got an email from somebody, but I may have a hard time finding that email again. My boss, on the other hand, likes send email. She likes getting it in her email so that she can answer immediately when she gets it on her cell phone, on her iPad, on her computer, wherever she's at, she can immediately answer it. And so she prefers it that way. Again, there's not a best method. It really is your preference as to which way you like it. We just recommend you turning one or the other off to make it easier for your students to know how to communicate with you. All right, so I'm going to talk about attendance. Now, we have a couple of different attendance features. One of the ways is the RFID and swipe stations within each course. So if you are teaching a face-to-face course that you are going to be meeting online, you can actually track that with who's attending in the course. When they walk in the room, there's a little reader right by the door that they can move their ID card over. There's also a swipe station by the computer that they can actually swipe to be able to track who's all attending. I always like to point out it's not always 100%. Some days it just doesn't work for that classroom, but we need to know that. Also, if a student shows up too soon and swipes it too early, it's not going to track it. There's like a 10-minute grace period before the class starts that if they do it before that, it's not going to get them marked as being there. So just be aware of those things. So to be able to view this, if you click on that course attendance module in the early alerts and publishing grades page, it takes you to a page that shows you all of your courses. You can also change to another semester if you need to change it to a different semester for like reviewing last semesters or something like that. It's then going to list all of the course dates, meeting dates. Again, this is only for face-to-face classes. This does not work for online classes. It's going to list all of the meetings, when it is, where it is. If you click on a particular date, it's then going to list, or sorry, if you click on the summary for the attendance, it's going to list all the students, how many times they were marked present, how many times they were marked absent. If you can also change any of that. If you click on a specific date, it's going to list all the students. It's going to tell you whether they attended via swipe or not attended. You can then click on the amend. If you want to change it, you can get a PDF version. You can return to all dates. And then if you amend it, it then allows you to check for those that were present, uncheck if those were absent, or vice versa. You can switch them whatever way. You also have the option at the bottom to mark everyone as present, everyone is absent, or revert it back to the attendance if you've made some changes to some people. And then you can see attended via swipe but absent according to roll call, attended via roll call. Some people are always worried that somebody comes in, they swipe their card, and they walk out the room. Well, if you're paying attention to be able to see that, they could then, you can mark them as absent if they leave the room. I do see one question: how long do students have after class has started to swipe? They can swipe all the way up until class ends, I believe. And I believe they also have a 10-minute grace period after the class ends to be able to swipe in as well. But yeah, they can swipe at any time during the class. All right, so there is a new feature. It's been in Blackboard since I think since the beginning of spring, but we haven't publicized it because we were kind of still checking out some features of how it worked and stuff like that. But there is also an attendance feature inside of WTClass where you can keep track of it. It is not connected to the swipe stations in any way, shape, or form. We cannot connect it to the swipe stations at this time, at least. It is purely manual entry by you, but it does give you another method to be able to track attendance. This can then also be used for online classes if you want to track who's all attending. Maybe if you're doing Zoom sessions, you can track that through this attendance manager. So one thing that I have to mention up front is that you have to be very careful with turning this tool on. If you turn on the attendance tool and you click on the link for the attendance, it automatically adds a Grade Center column into your gradebook, and this column cannot be deleted. Let me repeat that one more time. This column cannot be deleted. So if you access it trying to play around, it's gonna add this column. Now you can hide it from your students, and you can, make it so that it's not really visible or counting into anything. You can do things with it so that it's not, gonna panic your students. But just know it adds it, and it is not something that we can delete. It is stuck there. And that also means when you copy your course forward, it's still there. So just be aware of that. I do have to say, there is a way that we can delete it. We have to delete it from the back end of the system, so it's not something that we like to do mid-semester. We like to do that before a class starts so that there's no student data in there that we have to risk losing in any way. So there is a way to get rid of it, but it's not something that we can do mid-semester. All right, so how does this work? So the first thing is you have to turn the attendance tool on in the course. By default, it is off because we don't want you to see it and start clicking on it and then get this column because you have no idea what it is. So it is something you have to turn on. So let me switch over here just so we can see how does this work. So if you go to Customization, Tool Availability, and you look for the attendance option, you click on the checkbox and you click Submit. And so that turns it on. So once you turn it on, you now can go to Course Tools and you'll be able to see the attendance option in the Course Tools. So once you click on attendance, so at this point, there's no worries, nothing has gone on, you don't have to worry about anything. Once you click this link right here, that turns it on fully in the course, and that adds that Grade Center item. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I click on attendance, and so it starts with basically give you some settings. So we add attendance. It So this says, okay, I want it. And we start by what are our settings? It doesn't have a lot of settings, a lot of options. Basically, what are the percentages for someone who is marked as being there, someone that is marked as absent, and someone that is marked late? You can use late as whatever you want it to be. Maybe that's an excused absence, maybe that's something else. And so you could change this. You can say you're either present, you're absent, or you're excused. And you could set this excused to be at 100 if you wanted it to be that way. I'm just going to leave it at the default, but those are our default 3 options. You cannot change these titles. You can't make any other changes. The only option is changing how is this late going to be calculated. And then how are my grades going to be reported back to students? Are they going to see a letter grade? Are they going to see how many points they've earned? Are they going to see a percentage? And you can choose however you want that to be. I'm going to keep it at points. I click on my X and it's going to exit out. Now so once I do that, as soon as I exit out, it will automatically add a Grade Center column, again, that is worth 100 points. So this number, 100 points, can be changed, but only before student data is entered. So before I start adding in whether people have been marked absent, late, present, all of that kind of stuff, I can only do that if I do it before I add in the things, before I add in any of that information. I can change how many points. So it's set at being worth 100 points. So if my my attendance is supposed to be only worth 40 points at the end of the semester or 50 points, I would need to go change that before I started this. And I can do that in the gradebook just like I change anything else, edit the column information, change the point value. All right, so the next thing you can see, there's all the different ways. It starts by putting in today's. Anytime I come into this section, it's always going to say, what is today? I can mark them as whatever it is just by clicking on a person's name to be able to say whether they're there or not, or late, or whatever it is. And again, there is an excused option. It just basically ignores that as a possible total in there. I can also go to this overall and notice it's going to tell me what it is. I can select this. I can mark everyone as present. I can clear everything, exempt that meeting, delete that meeting. I can also move in between or to the right to be able to add in new meetings. It does yesterday by default, but I can also say, okay, I want to edit exactly when it is and say it was for last week sometime. So I can do all of those options. Oh, and it looks like it doesn't want to show that date in there for me. I'll have to look at that, but it normally is going to show me the date showing there. Again, I can then mark who's there, who's absent. I can mark all of that from here. And so those are kind of my options. I like to point out there is a settings, but it just takes you right back to be able to edit that percentage, and that's all it's going to do. All right, and so I like to point that out partly because if I go into the full grade center, you'll see there's the attendance, and it's automatically configuring out that points based on what it is. So it starts by saying, okay, 100 points because that student has earned everything that they've been able to be there for. And as more days get added, it's going to adjust that. So I can do I can set all of that up in here and be able to set that in. All right. So again, that just gives you those options to be able to add in things. All right. So since most of us have already been inside of WTClass before, I think I'm going to skip over some of the lessons area, some of the things I quite often show. But some of the important things I like to point out. If you want to add anything in, this is the build content. This is where you add all of your stuff in. Notice you can build items, you can attach files, you can build folders, you can do all of that. You also have the ability to add in videos and things like that. So I'd like to point that out just for anyone that's kind of new and doesn't know where to do any of those things, that is how you can do those different pieces. If you have any questions with how do you build content, let us know and we can help you with stuff. If you are building a fully online class, like I said, I do highly recommend you coming in to that course templates tomorrow, because some of that kind of information kind of goes over in that. Maybe not specifically how to add things, but it gives you some ideas on best practices for when you are adding some things in there. Okay, so let me skip over some of these things real quick. Oh, Oh, and here we go. Okay, so a couple of other things. We do have a roster inside of WTClass. It is located in that control panel under course tools, under photo roster. It will list everyone in the course with their photo IDs from their Buffalo Gold card. So if you want to see who they look like before, you can see that from there. Just know, oh, let me see. I did have a question. Can you upload PowerPoint for lessons? Yes, you can upload PowerPoint, you can upload PDFs, you can upload basically any kind of file. There is a 150 megabyte limit for uploading files, so please be aware of that. So if you're uploading videos, especially, sometimes PowerPoints, you may have to have alternative ways to be able to upload that. Videos, we actually recommend using our video streaming service, Ensemble, instead of uploading them into WTClass. Let us know about that, and we can walk you through some of that at a later date if you have interest in those other kind of things. So the photo roster, if you do see like the buffalo icon you see here, that means the student has not uploaded an image into that. So just be aware, you may not see everything. They may also be a really old file. So just kind of be aware that they may not be perfect, but you may be able to find out who some of your students are, kind of what they look like beforehand. All right, so student preview is one of the things that I mentioned that I like to show at another that I like to show. So what I like to show with it is, so it's this little icon, the eyeball, the swirling arrows. When you click on the student preview, this is different than edit mode because, again, the course, that control panel is now gone. It hides that early alerts module. It hides that managed syllabus area. This is what a student would see. So they, again, because that lessons area and resources area have nothing in them, they're not here. The instructor resources is not here. So you can see it really gives this appeal of how do students see this. If they go into my grade, you can actually go into my grades to see how are your grades doing. You can see that there's that grade that I had entered for the attendance. Students can also see what they were marked for attendance. You can now see all of that kind of stuff. What are students seeing with that? So exit preview then gets us out. We have the option to delete the preview user or keep the preview user. So I'm selecting keep because I have some of this information. That's why I was able to add in that attendance form for someone, because I had this preview user in here. But I typically recommend deleting it. It can skew some numbers for, you know, grades of assignments and tests because you have somebody who didn't complete something. So just be aware of that. But keeping you allows you to be able to actually test things out as a true student, and what does that do to students' grades and things like that. But that's how you kind of get in and out. Let me get through this. There we go. All right, so Grade Center, the other big thing that a lot of people need help with. So with the Grade Center, so if you go into the full Grade Center, you click on the Grade Center and you go on into full Grade Center, this is where you could actually post all of your grades online. So I'm going to run through kind of a real basic way of how to upload, how to add grades into a gradebook. I also like to mention, we specifically do not do major gradebook training, because every person does their gradebook uniquely for the most part. So if you need help with your gradebook, please let us know and we will help you. We will sit down with you, Zoom, however you prefer, and we'll walk you through making sure your gradebook is set up correctly. I'm going to show a basic way. This is assuming this is a face-to-face class. Students are going to hand me everything in. They're not going to use any assignments, any tests that are available online, because those are kind of done differently. So I'm going to go through that. So I have one last poll that I want to ask everyone. What kind of gradebook do you use? Do you use a percentage-based gradebook? Or do you use a points? Or do you not know? So let me show just a little example. Percentage basically is saying everything, add up a category and the category is weighted for the total percentage. Where a points is then every assignment is worth its own set of points, and then students get however many points out of the total points, and that equals their final grade. So I just want to kind of get a feel for how everyone is setting up. Right now we're looking pretty equal among points and percentage, with a few people who aren't sure. So I'm going to just show a basic, how do you set up this kind of grade book. I'm going to leave that poll open for a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and go look at how do you set up a grade book. All right, so if you go to Grade Center and you go to Full Grade Center, so you notice that there's a points and percentage column in here by default. Percentage column by default has a check mark next to it. So if you are a percentage person, you're good. You leave it that percentage at that check mark next to the percentage. This is showing the system, this is where I want my final grade to be. This is where I want my final grade to come from. If you're a points person, you click on the drop down, do set as external grade, so that column, that checkbox moves to points. Now that is showing that the points column is the grade that it's going to be coming from. So it just depends on whether your points or percentage. If you're not sure, stick with me for a little bit. So basically at this point, if you're creating a full grade book from scratch, again, you're not doing assignments that students submit online, you're not doing tests that students submit online, you would click on the create column, add in the title of the item that you're doing. So we'll do, oh, come here, final exam. Grade Center name is if you want it to be something different than what the students see. For the most part, this isn't necessary anymore, but you could see something in the Grade Center that's different than what the students would see. You can enter a description, primary display, how are students going to see their grade, secondary display, if you want to be able to see like the points and the associated percentage, you could change this. Just know students do not see a secondary display. You can add in a category if you want it to be a specific category. So I'm going to add it in as an assignment, or sorry, a test here. Give it how many points. I'm just going to do 100. If you are a percentage-based person, this is one thing to really know. If you think you are a percentage where you have those weighted grades, all grades need to be set at 100 points possible. It does weird math if you aren't setting them all to be 100 points. And the big thing to know is if you don't know how to figure out the grade manually, don't do it. Stick to 100 points possible so that it's easy to figure out. Notice there's that due date that I mentioned we'll set up to the calendar, and then include this column in Grade Center calculations. Do I want it to go into the final grade or not? Do I want students to see this column in the gradebook or not, or at least not yet? Or do I want students to see their statistics? How are they doing in comparison to everyone else? Most people don't like that because they don't want to answer the questions, why am I doing worse than everyone else? So most leave that at no. So once you add that in, it adds it into the right side. You can then add in additional problems. So I'm going to say essay 1. I'm going to give it a category of assignment. And one more time, I'm going to say essay 2. Sorry, I'm going real quickly, just trying to make sure we get everything done in time here. So there's my three items with all of their categories associated. If you don't like the titles for categories, if you go under manage, there is a categories area. You can create your own categories. Know that Blackboard has its own categories that are in here. You cannot delete them, you cannot edit them. These are the defaults, but you can always create new ones if you want to. All right, so with that, if I'm a percentage person, if I click on the drop-down menu and I go to edit column information, I can change the name if I want this to say maybe overall or something like that. I can change the primary displays if I want to do that. Typically what I do recommend is set the secondary display to this letter option, because this will help you with publishing your grades. All right, so then we come down to our 3 boxes. We have our columns to select, so this would allow me to select individual columns, or we have our categories. Since I set up categories, I'm going to select my categories. So I did an assignment category, I did a test category. This is also where then I set up my weighted percentages. If I want to drop, I can set it up to drop maybe one of my 2 assignments if I wanted to. Notice it does have the drop highest grades. that is what it does. It will drop the highest grade. It doesn't use the highest grades. So I don't know of anybody that actually uses this area, so just be careful with doing that. There are some other options in here, depending on your gradebook setup, we might recommend them. But otherwise, the only settings you might want to change is just adding a drop, plus the adding in your assignment, your categories, percentages. So we're going to leave everything else the same. We click submit, and then it would adjust our percentages. If your points, you don't have to do anything. Now, if you drop, then you might want to edit the column information also. Again, you can change the name down here in the select columns, change it to that selected columns and categories. You get that same information that then you could say, okay, I want my assignments and my tests, but I want to maybe drop my one assignment. I'm going to exit out of these and change it right back to how it was and cancel out, but that's how you can do it. Again, if everything in your gradebook is all going to be calculated towards the final grade, you don't have to do anything as a points person. Now, to add in grades in this manner, I can just go in here, enter my grades, hit enter, it goes to the next line, type in my next grade, and it will just move me across this page. And then I can go through, and you'll notice that as I'm adding things in, it's calculating my grades for me. Again, with this one, the one thing I do recommend generally is coming in and adding in that letter grade. And so that is how you can add in the grades. Again, as you add in different things, it will adjust the grades appropriately for what things need to be done according to those points and percentages that you have set up. So that is how you can add in a simple gradebook. Again, if you have any questions, you need any help, please let us know so we can help you with setting it up. It is not easy to do, so just be aware of that. We are here to help with those. So let me switch through all of these. Showed you how to grade. All right, so coming to the very end, we do have additional trainings that are available specific to kind of a WTClass basics. This is kind of our virtual training boot camp. The course template tomorrow, you know, talking about how do you use course templates, what are best practices with that. Then we talk about, you know, how do you do tests, how do you do assignments, how do you do discussions, and we're going to talk on best practices, you know, recommendations based on those best practices and different things like that. If you're interested in getting help, you can sign up for an office call. I have the URL posted down there below if you're interested in that. You can also always contact any one of us. So you can always do that. If I can switch over, there we go. There's our different ways that you can contact any of us. I know we do have a lot of new people, so they don't necessarily know who any of us are. I guess I never did introduce myself. I'm Dr. Krista Favela. I'm an instructional designer. We also have Yvonne Stevenson and Chris McGilvery, who are also instructional designers. And then we have Laura Hossel, who is our boss. She's the manager of ITS. That, you know, any one of us can help you with any of it, with any of your help that you need with gradebooks, adding content into your course. Again, if you are teaching a fully online class, I highly recommend attending all of the trainings this week. If you're unable to attend any of them, we are recording them. We'll send out recordings. We are also doing another iteration of this come August, the first full week in August, that you're welcome to attend the training on that, on one of those days, in addition to, in place of. So if you're welcome to come back to those as well. So I'm going to stop real quick, see if anyone has any additional questions for anything going on. I've been trying to keep an eye on what was going on to see if any questions were asked, and I haven't really seen anything else. But I wanted to give everyone just a minute to answer any questions anyone might have. Other than that, I think that's all that I have for y'all today. But again, give anyone just a minute. If you need to come off the mic or come onto the mic to ask a question, feel free to do that as well. And thanks, everyone. So glad that we had a good turnout today.